Hello everyone and welcome back. This is Into the Dungeonverse episode 26 of our show. This show and programming is brought to you by NewMinds.tv and Masters of the Dungeonverse, a role-playing program from New Minds Enrichment where we teach people how to play role-playing games and how to find the enrichment that comes from those experiences. We offer those online, and when we're able to, we offer them in person, doing large events like a LARP, which is a live-action roleplay. So we're looking forward to those things coming back in the future. But for now, we're here with you online, sharing stories, having interactive quests, creating art, and creating role-playing resources. So if you've been following the show, you know that today in our schedule is we start the week with story time. So the story that I chose this week actually comes from my childhood. I remember reading it in elementary school, and it's one that stuck with me so much that I thought about it now almost 20 years later, about stories that I could read and stories that were relevant and worth sharing. And this one popped into my head. I read through it, and it just seems like it really matches some of the experiences that we're going through right now as people staying at home. And I just wanted to read this story to you so you can sketch along as you read if images come to mind. I'm going to read through this for you, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot. It's a really neat story, and it's going to give you some stuff to think about as well. Alright, so if you don't have all of your stuff that you need, go ahead and take a pause. Go grab a blanket, grab a snack, a drink if you want to. Get comfy and enjoy yourself, and we're going to go ahead and start our story. So this story is The Sandcastle by Alma Luz Villanueva. "Have you dressed yet?" their grandmother called. "Once a month in the sun, and they must almost be forced," she muttered. "Well, poor things, they've forgotten the warmth of the sun on their little bodies. What it is to play in the sea. Yes." Mrs. Pavlov reached for her protective sun goggles that covered most of her face. It screened all ultraviolet light from the once life-giving sun. Now, it, the sun, scorched the earth, killing whatever it touched. The sea, the continents, had changed. The weather, as they called it in the last century, was entirely predictable now. Warming. Mrs. Pavlov slipped on the thick metallic gloves, listening to her grandchildren squabble, and she heard her mother's voice calling her. "Masha, put your bathing suit under your clothes. It's so much easier that way, without having to go to the bathhouse first. Hurry! Father's waiting." She remembered the ride to the sea, the silence when the first shimmers of water became visible. Her father had always been first into the chilly water. "Good for the health," he'd yell as he dove into it, swimming as far as he could, and then back. Then he'd lie exhausted on the sand, stretched to the sun. Such happiness to be warmed by the sun. Then, the picnic. She could hear her mother's voice. "Stay to your knees," to herself. "She'd be a mermaid if I didn't watch," and she'd laugh. Masha would like belly down, facing the sea, and let the last of the waves roll over her. She hadn't even been aware of the sun, only that she'd been warm, or if a cloud covered it, cold. It was always there. The sun, its light, its warmth. But the sea, they traveled to it. So she'd given all of her attention to the beautiful sea. She saw her father kneeling next to her, building the sandcastle they always build when they went to the sea. Her job was to find seashells, bird feathers, and strips of seaweed to decorate it. How proud she'd felt as she placed her seashells where she chose, where they seemed most beautiful. Only then was the sandcastle complete. She heard her father's voice. "The princess's castle is ready now, for her prince. Come and look, Anna. What do you think?" She saw herself beaming with pride, and she heard her mother's laugh. "Fit for a queen, I'd say. Can I live in your castle too, Masha?" "Please, Princess Masha." "Of course, mother. You can live with me always." She remembered her mother's laughing face. Her auburn hair lit up by the sun, making her look bright and beautiful. The sun, the sun, the sun. The scientists were saying that with the remedies they were employing now and the remedies begun 20 years ago, they'd stopped all nuclear testing and all manufacturing of ozone-depleting chemicals was banned worldwide. The scientists were saying that the sun, the global problem, would begin to get better, perhaps for her grandchildren's children. Perhaps they would feel the sun on their unprotected bodies. Perhaps they would feel the delicious warmth of the sun. All vehicles were solar powered. The populations took buses when they needed transportation, and people emerged mainly at night. So most human activity was conducted after the sun was gone from the sky. Those who emerged during the day wore protective clothing. Everything was built to screen the sun's light. Sometimes she missed the natural light of her childhood streaming through the windows so intensely the urge to just run outside would overtake her. She missed the birds, the wild birds. But today, they were going outside in the daytime when the sun was still in the sky. Masha knew they were squabbling because they hated to dress up to go outside. The clothing, the gloves, the goggles were uncomfortable and cumbersome. She sighed, tears coming to her eyes. Well, they're coming, Masha decided. They can remove their goggles and gloves on the bus. The sea was closer now, and the bus ride was comfortable within the temperature-controlled interior. Those with memories of the sea signed up, bringing grandchildren, children, friends, or just went alone. Masha had taken her grandchildren before, but they'd sat on the sand listlessly, sifting it through their gloved hands with bored little faces. She tried to interest them in the sea with stories of her father swimming in it as far as he could, but they couldn't touch it, so the sea, didn't seem real to them. What was it? A mass of unsomethingable, hostile water. Hostile, like the sun. They'd taken no delight, no pleasure in their journey to the sea. But today, yes, today we will build a sandcastle. Masha smiled at her secret. She'd packed everything late last night to surprise them at the sea. Why haven't I thought of it before? Masha asked herself. Then she remembered the dream, months ago, of building a sandcastle with her father at the sea. It made her want to weep because she'd forgotten. She'd actually forgotten one of the most joyful times of her girlhood, when the sea was still alive with life. Today, we will build a sandcastle. They trudged on the thick, dense sand towards the hiss of pale blue. Only the older people picked up their step, excited by the smell of salt in the air. Masha's grandchildren knew they'd be here for 2 hours and then trudge all the way back to the bus. The darkened goggles made the sun bearable. They hated this forlorn place where the sun had obviously drained the life out of everything. They were too young to express it, but they felt it as they walked, with bored effort beside their grandmother. We're going to build a sandcastle today. What do you think of that? Masha beamed, squinting to see their faces. What's a sandcastle? The boy mumbled. You'll see. I'll show you. Is it fun, Grandmama? The girl smiled, taking her grandmother's hand. Yes, it's so much fun. I've brought different sized containers to mold the sand and, oh, you'll see. The boy gave an awkward skip and nearly shouted, Show us, Grandmama! Show us what you mean! Masha laughed, sounding almost like a girl. We're almost there, yes, we're almost there. The first circle of sandy shapes was complete, and the children were so excited by what they were building, they forgot about their protective gloves. Now, we'll put a pile of wet sand in the middle, and build it up with our hands, and then we'll do another circle. Yes, children? The children rushed back and forth from the tide line, carrying the dark, wet sand. They only had an hour left. Their eyes, beneath the goggles, darted with excitement. Just don't get your gloves in the water. A little wet sand won't hurt. Don't worry, children. When I was a girl, there were so many birds at the sea, we'd scare them off because they'd try to steal our food. Seagulls they were, big white birds that liked to scream at the sea. They sounded like eagles to me. You used to eat at the sea, Grandmama? The girl asked incredulously. We used to call them picnics. What are eagles, Grandmama? The boy wanted to know, shaping the dark sand with his gloved hands. They used to be one of the largest, most beautiful wild birds in the world. My grandfather pointed them out to me once. Until that moment, she'd forgotten that memory of nearly 60 years ago. They'd gone on a train, then a bus, to the village where he'd been born. She remembered her grandfather looking up toward a shrill, piercing cry that seemed to come from the sky. She'd seen the tears in her grandfather's eyes and on his cheeks. He pointed up to a large, dark flying thing in the summer blue sky. "That's an eagle, my girl, the spirit of the people." Sadness overtook Masha, but she refused to acknowledge its presence. The sandcastle, Masha told herself sternly, the sandcastle is what is important now. "I've brought a wonderful surprise, something to decorate the castle with when we're through building it." "Show us, Grandmama, please." "Yes, please, show us now." Masha sighed with a terrible, sudden happiness as she brought out the plastic bag. Quickly, she removed each precious seashell from its protective cotton. 8 perfect shells from all over the world. "But Grandmama, these are your special shells. You said the sea doesn't make them anymore." "It will, Anna, it will." Masha hugged her granddaughter and made her voice brighten with laughter. "Today, we will decorate our sandcastle with the most beautiful shells in the world. Yes." And that's the end of the story. That's the end of the piece. What an awesome thing to be able to share something from your childhood with your children or your grandchildren. What an awesome thing to have parents and grandparents that want to share these things with you. I hope you enjoyed that piece. Again, that was The Sandcastle by Alma Luz Villanueva. I don't want to impose too many of my thoughts on the way you feel about this, so I'm not going to tell you what I think about it. I'm not going to share the feelings that I got necessarily, though you probably picked up some as I was reading. Art is meant to evoke emotions in you. It's meant to evoke an emotional response, and those emotional responses can actually teach us things. The way we respond to art can tell us a lot about ourselves and about our world. So, I have a couple questions that I'll leave you with to see if you have any thoughts. One, how did this make you feel as I read it to you, or as you followed along? What feelings were evoked in your mind? What thoughts came to your head? If you were drawing along, what imagery did you create? Secondly, is there anything that is relevant about the experience of this grandmother and her grandchildren? Is there anything that connects to our experience right now, to our life? Anything that you feel, just resonates with you? That means that it feels connected to you. When we say resonate, it means it feels connected to you in some way, connected to your life. Is there anything about their experience that you connect to what you're going through right now? And then my last thought or question that I'll leave you with is, what can we take away from this story? What lesson might we have learned, or what goal can we have based off of what we learned from this? Because this was an informative piece. This told us a lot. There was actually a lot of vocabulary in there. It told us about what ozone-depleting chemicals were and ultraviolet rays and what those meant. There's actually a vocab list on the story that I'm reading. But it also taught us some things emotionally. It took us through a human experience. Both this grandmother as a grandmother, but then this grandmother when she was younger and the things that she remembered. And as a parent now, I can definitely see some different things in this story that I didn't see the first time I read it. So for you, is there anything that you take away from this? Is there any thought that you want to go away with? And this is one where I will hop in and I will tell you my thought is, today I'm going to go outside. I've been doing this, but I'm going to go outside. I'm going to walk with my son, and I'm going to enjoy the sun coming down on us. Even though it's kind of cloudy, I'm going to enjoy that I can walk around with him and that I can hold his hand without a glove between us. What a precious gift we don't realize. So that's what I'm going to take away from it, is enjoying the contact that I get with my family and being able to experience the world and to share those things. So you don't have to write those down. It's not an essay prompt. It's not something that you gotta submit and comment in. Just thoughts to leave you with. And where does this story leave you, emotionally and physically? Okay, so that's the end of our piece. That's the end of our start the week story time, and we're actually going to move on for the end of the day. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you participating in the story. This was a shorter one, but it is connected to our interactive quest that'll start tomorrow. Remember, our interactive quest is Tuesday through Thursday on the show. So we'll start that, and we'll see what the connection is between this story and the place that you'll be visiting and the stories you'll be interacting with. So I do want to take a moment. The story was relevant to something that's going on with New Minds. New Minds Enrichment is putting on our very first global event. This is a 24-hour cardboard challenge for Earth Day 2020. So it's actually going to start tomorrow on Tuesday at 7 o'clock with Mr. Justin and his kids, his girls. Lily and Katie are going to be there, I believe, and they're going to help kick off this event. And then we're going to be going around the world throughout all of the time zones, and then coming back to Earth Day here in the US where we're operating from. And we're going to complete Earth Day with a cardboard challenge. So for those of you who have never been to a cardboard challenge, this is where normally we put a lot of cardboard out. We give you some goals, some challenges, and then you get to build and create how you want. But this time we're going to be giving you some challenges, and you'll be creating at home, being able to share with us and being able to ask questions and interact with different people around the world. So this is starting tomorrow, but working all the way through 24 hours and then ending on Wednesday for us. So collect your cardboard. If you have any cardboard that you were about to recycle, go ahead and leave it for now. Start getting some materials. Start thinking about what you might want to make. We're going to talk about different methods of creation. And in our show on Wednesday, we will be doing some special stuff with cardboard as well. So grab those things, get those together, and that is a very fun event. I'm really excited to see how this global setting works out. It's so cool that what could have been something that set us back is actually an opportunity to connect with more people than we could ever reach if we just said, come to one place in Texas for this cardboard challenge. So I'm really excited to meet some new friends around the world and to share these experiences with people who have a vastly different experience than what we might have here. So that is starting tomorrow and working through Wednesday. That is our Earth Day 2020 challenge. So if you don't have any information about that yet, definitely reach out to us and we're more than happy to get you that. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. That's all I wanted to tell you about. Of course, we have our Star Wars role-playing game running Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday with Mr. Walter. If you haven't checked that out yet, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to give you information. I got to play this Saturday with some friends from Lebanon, and with Mr. Justin's kid, I was Mathis. I was a technician, and I had a lot of fun with my shock gloves. That was the weapon that I had as we escaped some guards and tried to find a ship. So super exciting. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to meeting some new friends there. Thank you for tuning in to some real inspired learning. Remember to always pursue your passion until it becomes your talent. Even if that passion is sitting in a corner reading books so much that people yell at you about it. Was there anyone out there who has that same experience? Even if it's just reading books, pursue that passion. It doesn't matter what your passion is because it's yours and it's for you. Alright, up next is Round the World with Mr. Walter, followed by the Steam Train with Mr. Dorian, then a New Minds lesson from the Vault, and our end of day. It's actually kind of changing a little bit. Mr. Ben is having an interview panel that he does at the end of day, each day with some different talented and knowledgeable people. So if you haven't checked those out, that wraps up our day at the end, and otherwise we will catch you tomorrow for the start of our next interactive quest. Thanks for being here today, and I hope you have an amazing day and an even better week.